So today I'm going to share with you how I plan to use my 2025 planners and journals. I've already set them up. I have some mock spreads and I've also kept my current planner here to refer to it and show you what I'm talking about. Now, this is the first planner that I will show you. It is a Hobonichi Weeks Mega, which will work as my main planner for 2025. It will have everything except work because I do not want to have work information in my personal planner. And also, it is way too much information, and there is no space here to include that kind of information. Now, in this planner, I have not really used each and every spread, and I don't feel the need to do so. For example, the index spread, I will be leaving it blank simply because I've realized that I was forcefully trying to come up with ideas to use it. Like, I thought about using it as a spread for daily expenses or something related to health and fitness. But the space is way too little, and I'm not really sure about that, so I'm going to leave it blank. But if you have any interesting suggestions, I would love to listen to that. Now, the first spread that I am ready with is the monthly spread. I've actually set up all the months, not only the first month. If you've noticed, something common in the remaining months is that I've used the same color for the highlighter that I've used. Now, basically, what is happening here is that this is a pre planning spread. I have set up this spread with the help of my current planner, where I refer to the important birthdays and anniversaries and have noted them down. Of course, you can use a perpetual calendar and refer to that, but I prefer the current planner because sometimes in the new planner, I will be able to note down any new events that are relevant enough to be noted in my next planner. Other than that, I have a few other colors if you've seen over here. I've made a key for it at the back, like you can see over here. Obviously, this is specific to me. You can choose what you want to include. Now, the color coding is not a necessity. It helps, but more than being functional, it is simply because it just makes me a little happier considering that my planner is very bare. It is just a black pen only spread. I wanted a pop of color somewhere, and that is why it is there. Now, if you see, I have assigned different colors according to the key, but what it actually does is very simple. The monthly spread is something that I use only about 4 times a month. So I use it before I set up a weekly spread. So when I set up a weekly spread, I refer to the monthly, transfer the events accordingly to the weekly spread, and plan based on that. Other than that, the only other time I refer to the monthly spread is at the end of a month when I have to refer to the monthly spread and then fill up this A6 that I have over here, which is a memory keeping journal. Now, obviously, it won't be based on this. By the end of the month, it will be a lot more filled up. And accordingly, I will choose the important highlights which need to be transferred to my memory keeping journal. As of now, I do not plan to include anything related to paydays or bills over here. I have done that before. I have tracked my periods over here. I have done a number of things, but I've tried to keep it simple this year and not include any of that. Simply because many of it is actually being done on my phone right now, and I feel like I'm just repeating it unnecessarily over here. Like, everything related to budget planning is on my phone. It is not perfect, I'm working on it, but I would prefer that I don't really use it again over here. So that is my monthly spread. Now, going ahead to the main spread, which is the weekly spread. Okay, these are like the extra months which I don't really plan on using. This is the last week of November 2024, which I've used as a mock spread to demonstrate how I plan to use the weeklies. Now, I might really end up using this spread later on because the information is not fake, it is actually true. I have divided the left-hand side into 3 columns with the help of the dots that they have already provided, so you don't really need to measure it out. Now, this column is for events, the second one, me time, the third one is for habit tracking. I will probably change the order later. I want this over here and this at the last. Let me explain this better with the help of my current Hobonichi A5. So this section is entirely for habit tracking as well as the top part. And what I've done here is just reduced it to two habits, because I've often noticed that when I increase the number of habits that I have to track, I'm not really consistent with it. So here I've simply included water and sleep with the help of the yellow Hobonichi stencil. The drops represent my bottle. So the goal is 2.5, but 3 is very good, and I will fill it up as required. And below that, frankly, I don't know why I did this. I had such a detailed sleep tracker over here, and that is not possible over here. So instead, I am just going to write on the right hand side the time during which I slept. So maybe like 10 to 8 or 10 to 5 or 12 to 3, because some days my sleep is very bad. And then I will also write down the number of hours based on that time, whether it is just 4 hours, it is 8 hours, accordingly over there, so that I have an idea and I can work on it. Now, I will probably not do this again because I kind of feel it is pointless, but I just wanted something over there. Moving ahead to the second column, this is me time that you see over here on top. So basically, it is something that I enjoy doing, like reading a book or something that I'm watching. But mostly it is about what I'm reading at that point of time. Now, if you can see over here, I've written a version over here with the chapters. So this is an audible. Now, something to note over here is that this is not something that I fill up after I have finished reading that day. This is actually something I set up for the entire week well in advance when I plan for the week. How this works is a little different compared to what most people generally do. This is somewhat of, I would say, a goal for me to complete. So if I write down 4 and 5 as chapters for that specific day, I see to that I read that much at least that day. If I want, I read more depending on how much time I have available. And in case I'm not able to read it for some reason, I just push it to the next day and complete it the next day. Now, obviously, there are sometimes situations where I'm not able to read and finish the book that specific week. So, what I do is when I set up the next week, I see to that the me time section is left blank so I can finish the previous week's goal that I had as far as reading is concerned. Now, this is sort of a weird thing that works for me where I write it down and I do it. As of otherwise, I will just skip out on reading because sometimes the books in my reading list are not always interesting, and they may not suit my taste, and I end up kind of lagging behind because of that. Now, moving ahead to the next thing. The last column that we have here is for events, the section at the bottom. So these are largely church events because I don't have an eventful life. I have a very boring life, if you want, but I don't think it is boring from my point of view because I like to stay at home. I enjoy that. I don't really have any energy left once I come back from work for socializing. So you are likely to see a lot of this blank, and that is fine. So that is regarding the event section. On the right hand side, I have the entire memo page kept to write down my to-do list. So this is basically replacing this section that you see over here. Now, what will happen here is very simple. I have tried to use this as a sort of rolling weekly or the Alistair method. I am not really sure about how the system will turn out this year because it is my first time using it. I have tried to basically drown myself in YouTube videos to find out some way of using this weekly spread as a to do list, and I have found several videos on rolling weeklies. The one that I found to be very simple to understand was Claudia Kai's video, and I've taken inspiration from that and adapted it to what I would like to do over here. I've titled it as This Week. I might do this again and again if I have the patience for it, otherwise, I would just leave it blank. On the left hand side, I have divided it as per the days, Monday to Sunday, and you can see that I've used a highlighter to separate the days because when I initially looked at it, I noticed that the days were all blurring in together and I could not figure out the exact column to mark, and therefore, I feel that this is a little more easier on the eyes. On the right hand side, I have written down the task that I have to complete that specific week. Now, if you've noticed over here, I've left some space between certain tasks. Basically, what I've done is I've clubbed tasks together which are connected to each other. So if you can see over here, this is regarding social media. And the reason is very simple. Some tasks I have written in detail so that I will do it, because I end up very lazy when it comes to certain categories, because sometimes I film, I edit, but I don't really end up uploading it. That is why I've separated it out into several tasks. On the other hand, some tasks like this one, B2 refers to the one of the bedrooms. I don't really need to write the details like does the shelves, do the floors, because I do it in its entirety if it is mentioned over here. So it depends from person to person how you go about writing the task. I feel there are certain things on a daily basis that are done which I don't really need to write here, like wash dishes or clean the counters. But it is your preference in the end. If you feel that you would do better by writing it down, that is up to you. The so this is my weekly spread in the end, very simple. And what I will do is I've not really written a key for it, but it's going to be very simple. I will do a bar over here if it is partially done, and I will complete the bar into a tick if it is completed. Obviously, what I've seen online is that it's a cross mark, but it just seems odd to me that I would write a cross mark when I've completed the task. I would prefer a tick mark. So we will see how that works out later on. Obviously, if I'm forwarding it to the next week, I will write an arrow accordingly to the right hand side. And if the task is just cancelled and I don't plan on doing it ever, I will just draw a line across the task. Now, over here, I will try to note down, circle a bit, and connect the line to this by noting down which day I've actually done it on. So I think you most people already know about the rolling weekly, and I don't have to explain it over here. But in case something is not clear, feel free to ask, and I will try to help as much as I can. Now, moving ahead to the next spread, okay, which is clearly all the memo pages at the back. At the back, I have two 17 pages since it is a mega, and it is not exactly okay. If you want to call it a collection, it is up to you. So it begins with a social media section, which I know is not relevant for everyone, so I'll go through it quickly. I've divided the spreads in this manner: YouTube, Instagram, and the month written over here, with the dates mentioned over here. So I have the topics written over here, and then I plan it out over here. Obviously, I have left several extra pages up to 50 so that I can plan as required. From 51 onwards, I have my wish list section. So I have five major categories: aquarium, hair care, skincare, stationery, and the last one is household. So the wish lists are for my online purchases because I tend to splurge when I buy online. This one helps me to curb the purchases a bit. When I create a wish list, I often tend to notice that with time, I lose interest in many of the things that I've written and I just don't buy them. And if I really need them, I can at least remember them when a sale approaches and I can buy it at a better discount with better offers. Because I often tend to forget what I need even when a sale is there. I just don't remember them, and then I buy it at a higher price. Now, if you see over here, this I have already set up a bit. So there are certain things that I buy multiple times in a year. What I plan to do is write down the month next to it. For example, for hand wash, I might write December and highlight it, then March, so that I'm aware of how many times I've purchased a particular product in a year. And when it comes to certain other categories like aquarium or stationery, if I've already made the purchase in a particular month or in a month next to it, I tend to think that okay, I shouldn't do it now since I've already bought that thing in a previous month. So this kind of helps me to curb my purchases and be more aware of what I'm spending money on. Now, again, I've left a few pages for that in case I need more space. And then after that, this is my brain dump section. Now, till last year, what I've done is randomly brain dump when I felt overwhelmed. I just let it all out into this book that I have. However, what I'm going to do next year is create the section and try to do a brain dump before the start of the next month so that I can plan accordingly for that specific month. I've already done this entire setup for the whole year, but I have also left some extra pages just in case I want to do random brain dumps and the other version does not work out for me. Now, beyond that, there are about 100 something spreads left. What I plan to do with that is simply brainstorming and using it as a commonplace notebook. I've never made an index for that. I'm trying to think whether I really need that or not. Frankly, these 100 pages will not be enough for me because often what I do is I finish an entire book like this in an year, and these 100 pages, I'm pretty sure I will be done with it in the first quarter, which means that I might need another old book to use after it. And it doesn't really worry me as such because I'm quite happy when I finish up the old dated planners or the abandoned notebooks that I have. And it makes me quite happy to have used them. Nevertheless, this is my plan for my planner, main planner as such. The pages at the back are not relevant for me. I know many people are into filling up all of this, but again, too little space. I don't see anything worthwhile happening over here, so I'm just going to leave them blank. I hope you enjoyed this part of the video. Now we will move on to the next book that I have and how I've set it up. This is the Hobonichi original, which is the A6 size that I plan to use as my journal for 2025. Now, when I say journal, it is more of memory keeping rather than writing about emotion. So I tend to write about what happened in the day. Now, let us begin with this journal. I'm just letting you know that unlike the planner that I showed earlier, there is nothing already set up over here, but I can show you my current planner to give you an idea of how I plan to use these spreads. Now, this spread is going to be my income tracker. If you can see over here, I've covered it up, but basically I highlight the day on when the day that I received, and below I write down the amount, the source that I received it from. Now, this may seem a little random to have in my journal, but I kind of want to store it for later years so that I can refer to it. This is not for budget planning, it is just for my information because I don't have a consistent source of income. I receive different amounts, I receive it on different dates, and I want to be aware of it at one glance that I can quickly look at it and get an idea of things, how things are going on. Now, moving on from that, this one is, as the name suggests, it will work as a yearly index for me for the dailies that I will be filling up later on. So when I go to this journal, once the journal is done, I can just quickly look at the index, find what I want to find, whichever entry that I'm looking for, and just flip to that specific date because of the index. Now, it has always been a very useful technique to use. Beyond that, I have this spread, which is the monthly. Now, the monthly will be an overview of the month for me. So I will write down the highlights of the month over here. I will refer to the Hobonichi Weeks that I showed earlier at the end of the month, and in one go, just fill it up as required. Obviously, things will come as the month progresses. Now, the next spread is one that I do not really like because every year it has been a complete disaster. This is called the Turning the Page to a New Year spread. Now, usually this spread falls between the monthlies and the weeklies in the Hobonichi cousin, and it just gets drowned in there. I don't ever flip to it, and it never gets, touched. So I've used it over the years for goal planning and a number of other things, but it is never, beneficial for me. This For this spread in 2025, I am thinking of using it as a letter to God. I do not know how this will work out. I just feel like writing a letter to God on this two-page spread, uh, probably at the end of this year, maybe in the last week of December, so that I can reflect on the current year as well as write about next year. So it is going to be extremely personal. And once I am done with the journal, the idea is that I can go back and read on this even though I don't refer to it throughout the year. So moving ahead to the next spread. Now, this is the dashboard. This appears before every month as the dailies begin. You will see this spread. Now, in this spread, it's a little random for me. Most people, when they memory keep, ideally photos would be included, that would be a good idea. But I'm not a photo person, I just don't. So I can't see myself using that over here. Instead, what I do is completely random things, okay, depending on what has, resonated to me that month. Sometimes it can be a funny quote, sometimes it will be a message that I read, sometimes I just feel like decorating. So as you can see, it is very random. I just use it however I want to, like a creative space, and enjoy it. Sometimes I tend to fill it up before the month begins, which is most of the time. But in some cases, I remember that I have filled it up once the month is done based on my experiences of that month. Now, coming to the daily spreads that you see over here. Obviously, the A6 is significantly smaller to the A5 size that you see over here. And it is very obvious why I have gone to a smaller size. As you can see, I don't really fill it up all the way to the bottom all the time. But what I do generally is once I write, okay, I do this where I write in capitals the main topic of that specific entry. How this helps me is that when I have to fill in the index at the end of the month, I don't have to read everything. I can just look at that and choose whichever is important, because sometimes there are multiple things that I highlight. Accordingly, I choose what is more important and fill in the index as required. If there are multiple things, I will work on it accordingly. And one more thing to point out over here is the pen that I use. I actually have kept it around somewhere. Just give me a minute. Okay. It is the Erin Condren black marker pen. So one side has a fine tip, okay, and the other side it has a medium tip. Now, why I love this instead of fancy fountain pens is very simple. The fine tip is what I use most of the time, but on the other hand, the medium tip is what I use to write the titles. So I can just use one pen and don't have to search for multiple pens. In one pen, everything in my planners and journals are done. That's it. Now, coming back to the spread. So the daily spreads have two purposes for me. The first one is memory keeping, where I fill in what happened in the day and sometimes write about my emotions as well, and accordingly write down the main topic and then fill in the index at the end of the month. The second purpose is very simple. I leave it blank. Uh, so, yes, sometimes I just leave many spreads blank. And that is also why I went to a smaller size, because this year I have left months on an end blank in the Hobonichi cousin, and that just overwhelmed me. Usually, I'm not bothered if it is just a few pages that go blank. I just ignore them or I just decorate it. But this year, there were way too many for me to just ignore them, and I've gone for this. Now, there's a slight problem I have here in case any of you have any suggestions regarding it. So, sometimes I write a lot, and that kind of worries me. How will I manage in such a small space when I write a lot? Especially when you think about it, the month of Jan is when everyone is so dedicated to use their new planners and journals, and you tend to fill it up a lot. So, what will I do in case I finish up this page? Where will I complete the entry? Now, for later months, I'm not worried because when I've done this before, in later months, what I do is I go to a previous spread which I left blank, and I just mention the date over there and continue the entry over there. But in Jan, I do not really know what to do because I cannot just go to a random spread and then just fill it up. It just doesn't make sense because I do not know which one is going to go empty. So if you have any suggestions, please let me know about that. Now, moving on to the memo pages at the back. Now, as you can see, right now I have not done anything over here, but let me show you my current planner. Okay, this is the A5 size. Okay, significantly bigger compared to the A6. So it works as a to be read section for me. Now, again, I need a bit of help over here. So the thing is, I like to have the to be read section at the back in the memo pages, but there are two types of ways that I generally like to set it up, which doesn't work for me, however. So the first way is very minimal since I don't really decorate much. I remember one year where I just wrote a long list of books and there were columns and I just filled up all those columns. And it was so boring that I think that was the year that I read the least amount of books. And the other way is the other extreme, where people have such beautiful spreads that I cannot recreate even if I want to because I don't have a single artistic or creative bone in my body. And even if I have to imitate it, I just can't. I have tried taking printouts. I just don't have that sense of, aesthetic, or I just can't. So what I do is an in between. Okay, so this works for me where it is neither very simple as the columns, but neither too creative. Okay, so I divide the page into four. I have these book covers here, so the name, all the important information comes in there, and it is a little colorful as well. Below that, I give the ratings after I have read the book and how much I've read, the category it falls under, the month that I've read in, so all the important information that I want to write. Obviously, it's not a detailed review, but I'm happy with it because I don't have the time to keep a book or a reading journal as such. So, this is what works for me. And this is something that has worked for a number of years now. I think I will continue with the same technique in the A6 size. Obviously, it's smaller, so I will have to try to go for a smaller version of it. This will be done in the second month of December. And if you have any other creative ideas that are simple enough to do, maybe please give me some ideas so I can try to look into it, and maybe, who knows, I might actually do it. Then, at the back, since I have a to be read section over here, what I do is, where is it? I can't I find it. Okay. I actually fill up this 365 days checkoff sheet. Is this is a necessity? No, but it is fun to do it. So I just fill it up just to see which days I've read and which days I've not read. It's fun to see it at the end of the year. Not a necessity, of course. Then this spread, words to remember. I've always wanted to do this, but never could. Instead, what I've done, I think last year and maybe the year before that, is basically used it to add more books. Okay, one year I think I didn't have space on the memo page, and then I added more books over here. And current year, what I've done is I've added some French books over here, which I was trying to read. Just to be clear, I was reading Harry Potter in French. I could not complete the series because of things that happened this year. I think I have finished three books. The last four have not been done. So I probably will include that here again so that I can complete the series. I have still not decided on that. But other than that, I don't really use the spreads at the back. I just ignore them. I know there are interesting spreads, but I don't see myself using them. So, yeah, this is my journal. Hope you enjoyed it. Now, moving on to the next one. So the next thing that I have here is the church journal. So yes, this is one that I liked a lot when I was ordering it, but I just feel it's way too crowded when I see it in real life. I just don't know why. I know many people like it. Um, yeah. Anyway, coming to it, I've kind of set it up a bit, so I will show you. I never use these, okay, and I'm not really bothered by that. I don't use these spreads in my church journal. So the monthlies are empty as of now. So what happens here is that I fill it up with events that are announced in church. It gets completely filled up by the end of the month, okay, and when I say I fill it up, it does not mean that I'm attending it. I just note it down. And once I come back home, I see which ones I am able to attend, and only those get transferred to my Hobonichi Weeks, which is my main planner. Here, I just write it all down so that I'm aware of them. It's not that I'm going to attend all of them. Then moving on to the next thing. Oh, I can show you December. I've actually filled up December. Okay. The extra month of December is where I write about the events that are going to take place on the 31st of December because I'm organizing it, so I won't be showing you that. Let me just show you the regular weekly spreads. So this is a random weekly. As you can see over here, I've already set it up. Now this has been done for the entire year. It is a Bible reading plan that I've taken on from an online website. You can find several online. I'd like to choose a different reading plan every year, and then I set it up for the whole year. This takes me about, I think, 30 minutes to fill the entire year. It does not, 30 minutes is probably max. I've just increased it. And the reason I do this is because when I'm reading the Bible, I prefer not to look into a phone and then check what I have to read, or have to go into technology at that point of time. I have this book always next to me, and I find it easier to refer to this and read accordingly. Now, even though this side is empty, I will just explain that. So on the right hand side, since I take it to church on Sundays, the message that I received this Sunday, notes on that message will appear on the right hand side as such. Beyond that, in case the notes don't fit in that page, I always go back to the memo pages and then mention the date and continue over there. Now, one more thing that I do over here, even though it looks like it will probably be filled by now, is here in this space wherever I can, I squeeze in the prayer requests that are announced on that specific week, so that I can come back home and then pray on it. Because once you reach back home, you tend to not remember all of them. So I note it down here briefly as much as possible. And often I take a blue pen in my Bible, so it will be in a different color and easy to find over here. Then at the back, so since this is a regular weeks, there are only a few pages at the back. Okay. And what I do over here, as I told, is one, I write the extra notes over here which don't fit in there. Secondly, sometimes I go for weekday meetings if I have time or if I'm able to, and notes regarding that appear over here. Other than that, over the years, I've been part of a committee organizing things. So a lot of information regarding that also comes at the back. But I plan to stop this year. So next year onwards, that information won't be there, but that doesn't worry me as such. There are only a few pages and most of it gets covered in notes over here. Now, this, as I've said before, is not my faith journal. It is specifically a church journal, notes regarding what have been the message that I've heard, okay, events that have been announced and such. So it is not very personal, but at the same time, since I have prayer requests, I generally tend to have a lot of information regarding other people, and later on I cannot really flip through this planner on the channel. So yes. Now, other than this, I also have a work planner, which again I don't have right now, and I will not be showing it over here simply because it is actually quite impossible to show that personal sort of information. I will stop over here. Hope you enjoyed this video. See you in the next one. Bye.